And a pleasant good afternoon, live from the Cameron Cetus podcast studios. This is The Point After on the Oklahoma Sports Network, and glad to have you along. Just going to be myself as we get ready for I'm happy. I'm not just happy. I am football happy. Welcome to the football season 2024. And we've talked a lot of things over with coaches that we've talked about, with changes, with classes, with districts. In case you missed it, we had our media day in Southwest Oklahoma, and we had, of our 12 schools, we had 6 of them on. And you can go back and watch that. No, 7. I think 7 schools. And so you could go back and watch that on archive on the Oklahoma Sports Network Media Day, and went and talked to coaches and players. And then also this last couple of weeks ago on Thursday, we did our football preview, our 4th annual football preview show with Josh Calloway and myself kind of running down all the classes from 2A, which now has 2A1 and 2A2. That's something new. 3A, 4A, 5A, and 6A1 and 6A2. So it's not just the 6A schools that are split, it's 2A and below that they had to divide, and you're going to have some extra championships, and that's going to make the season extend a little bit longer than normal. In fact, bouncing around, I was looking at the OSSAA's website to say that usually that December 6th, 7th time frame is a championship weekend, especially for the bigger schools. And then the smaller schools was the week after. Well, now they've split it up where I think 4 and 5A is going to be like the 13th or 14th, something like that in December. I don't have that in front of me, but it's going to extend the season. But then you also have on the reverse end, which we're talking about this week, is 0 week, if you still want to call it that. Now, we're going to start with our 12 schools because we have 12 schools on the network, and we have just added Jones as our latest school. And of the 12 schools, we have 9 of them in action on this so-called 0 week. And I remember several years ago, it was maybe 3 teams of our 12 that were playing 0 week, and the rest of the 9 kicked off in regular week 1. Not so. So get ready for some football, high school football in action this week to kick it all off. And first and foremost, we want you to be a part of our network by simply downloading our app, Apple and Android devices on these little magical phones right there. So you download the Oklahoma Sports Network, and it's free to download. It's free to watch. And we've got 12 schools in the network. We'll start off where we started in Southwest Oklahoma 9 years ago, where we only had 3 schools on the network, but we have all 3 Lawton schools, Cache and Elgin, Walters, Altus, Newcastle, Middell with Midwest City, Del City, Carl Albert, and then, as I mentioned at the start of the broadcast, is Jones. So we've added Jones, a 2A school, into the network. And we are in negotiations, and we had a school, and we'll leave that for a later time, a school that wanted to be on the network, and it was so last minute, and I didn't want to do it just to do it. I think we could have accomplished that. But I'm one that if you're going to do it, let's do it right. And so they agreed, and we're going to postpone that until next fall. So I can tell you that we'll have 13 schools, maybe more, because we are also in negotiations with an affiliate. A little bit different than being on you're in the network, but you're doing it in-house. So if you know of any school that is doing an in-house project, they have the filmers, they have the broadcast, and they do that, and they do it well. We want you to continue to do that well, but then you can be added on to the Oklahoma Sports Network. And the advantage of being on the Oklahoma Sports Network is like what I said with apps. It's so much easier than to tell people through a Facebook link or on a YouTube link. And we have a YouTube page as well, so I understand that platform. But if you are someone outside and you're saying, okay, well, how can I find such and such a school if they're streaming? And so you Google search, and then you find the school, and then it's one hoop after another that you got to jump through. So if you already are on the network, when you pull up your phone, all of the broadcasts are right there in a click away. You don't have to back out and find another website or go to a Safari search or whatever you're having to do. And so that's the advantage. And then also in homes, 28,000 delivered with Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And that's outdated information. That was last year's information. I didn't even get the newest, latest of those who have downloaded us in homes. And then we're, of course, the traditional website at oksportsnet.com. And then our social media presence is very strong because we have over 20,000 followers on Facebook. We got about 4,000 or so subscribers to YouTube. We're at about 4,500 on Instagram and about 1,600 on X. And then we have our followers on TikTok as well. So you can kind of find us on all those social media platforms. And that's what's so encouraging is that you can find us readily available where you camp out. Where do you find yourself socially? Now, podcasting, we just started this past spring into summer. And because everybody and their brother was doing a podcast. And I said, well, why not join the crew, right? And, I have a radio background. And so I had the gift of gab. And so I could go on and make a podcast. That's not the realities of it. I really like to have guests and we'll have it. But the scheduling was just so frantic this week. And I was wanting to promote the fact that we have a weekly podcast and we'll have weekly interviews and guests. And so I'm going to my app right now on the phone to just go over down the rundown of, first off, the games that are going to be played. 4 of our schools, but 2 of them are playing each other. So 3 Thursday night games. So get ready for Thursday and Friday games. And we'll start off with a big one. We'll start off with a big one here at Cameron Stadium. It is going to be the MacArthur Highlanders against the Elgin Owls. Now, they've only played the last 2 years, and there is some recent history with these to make a instant classic revival between these two. 2 years ago, Elgin came in to MacArthur because they were up in 5A, and the game went down to the wire. It was the last-minute heroic touchdown by then a quarterback, Laura, who is now his senior, his 4th year at Elgin. So Trace Laura sends it up in the air, and it's a catch, an incredible catch, fingertip catch by Adesola that won the game for the Elgin Owls. And then last year, MacArthur took the trip to Elgin, and it was not so good for the Highlanders. They really took it on the chin, and so they've lost 2. And so now you have Cameron Festival, and we'll call it a playoff atmosphere because that's what Coach Manning referred to it as, is getting a playoff atmosphere in the first couple of weeks when you play your inner city schools, and then you play this rival that's just about 15 miles outside of town for the Elgin Owls. And so that is going to be a really good matchup. And then we're going to go right straight over to the Newcastle Racers. They're going to take on Bartlesville, and we've talked a little bit about this in previous podcasts, that Newcastle is in Murderer's Row, and we'll go into a little bit about why they're back into a 5A realm. So they moved up. Elgin moved down to 4A. Blanchard moved up to 5A, and they're still going to play their rivals. They're going to still play Blanchard. They're going to play Tuttle. They're going to play Elgin as non-district opponents, and then they got their 5A schedule. But that starts on a Thursday night here with Bartlesville. And then our newest school with Jones is going to take on Luther. And Jones was, just that close away from going to a state title last year. And they lost a lot of seniors, but they've got a great program, both football and basketball. And we're so excited to bring Jones in. So they're going to start with Luther, and that's going to be right out of the gate on a Thursday. And then you don't have to look any further than the biggest rivalry here in Southwest Oklahoma that is really recognized nationally between Lawton High and Eisenhower. And that was kind of sandwiched in because they were in the same district and they had to play later on in the year. And that took away the whole first of the game, first of the season, first game out of the books for both of them, and they're going to go back to that. And so both coaches agreed it was important when Eisenhower, and we're just talking about the class change, Eisenhower went back up to 6A2, while Lawton High was at 6A2, they dropped to 5A. So if you're following all the district schedules, Lawton High is not in the MacArthur district of 5A. They are over at where Carl Albert is, up of kind of in the metro, in the middle of the state of Class 5A before you start heading out to the east. So they've got a new coach, they got a new program and something new to play, but it is going to be phenomenal for 2 nights at Cameron Stadium that Lawton is going to benefit from, for having the Elgin Owls, who travel very well, and they will pack the away stands. And then the MacArthur Highlanders, hopefully a lot of folks will get out to get ready for football. And then you don't have to introduce the next game at all with that rivalry, because they will be at each other. And I think Eisenhower is the home team this year. And so Lawton High, who is, probably going to pack that visitors section up pretty good. Okay, so that's Friday. And then Altus Bulldogs will take on Ardmore. Interestingly enough, Ardmore, which was a perennial in 5A not too long ago, they've dropped down. So they're in the lower class. And Altus has moved out of the MacArthur district. And that was kind of by choice. They kind of want to go over in that other section where they will find Carl Albert and Lawton High. The Del City Eagles, who is going to be an East Side 5A school like they were the last 2 years, will be taking on Edmond Memorial. And you can catch all of these games here, again, on the Oklahoma Sports Network. And then finally, Midwest City will take on Piedmont. Now, Piedmont, a 5A school, is going up to 6A2 for the first time. So you can see that there has been a lot of changes since spring. And for those traditionalists that were so used to having the certain games and the certain opponents and the certain rivalries, now has been thrown out. So, just to kind of recap of our 12 schools, I've never seen this much change and reshifting than I ever have. I think the only way that stayed put was Cash. The Bulldogs still stayed at 4A. But here is the change. And Altus, they moved. We'll go out west. Altus, they moved into a different district, but they're still in 5A. Walters still stays the same, but their district was all kind of mumbo-jumboed, so they're not playing Apache, their rivals, which was before. They've got an interesting, unique situation and a new coach, because Farron Griffin come in. He was there not too long ago when they were 0-30 and had to take over a program. Well, now he's got a playoff team to take forward, so we're looking forward to our second year with the Walters Blue Devils. So Altus with a change of district. Walters with a change of a district because they changed up all of the complexities of those schools. And then Cash stayed the same. MacArthur stayed the same. Lawton High, as we mentioned, they went from 6A2 to 5A in the district over there in the Oklahoma City area. And then the Lawton High, so they go down and Eisenhower goes up. So they trade places. And Eisenhower had been growing, and they're now at 6A2. And then Newcastle, which was a 4A program, and they were considering that, okay, we're going to probably go 5A at some point, maybe in the next 2 years, because it's 2 years that you lock into a home and away schedule for both teams, and so they won't look at that until 2 years from now where the ADMs fall. But Newcastle goes up to 5A, and they knew their growth was going to put them there at some point. Outside of just Carl Albert being Carl Albert, Midwest City, who has already come down to the district where MacArthur is, and Del City, who has gone east for the last couple of years, they're going to still stay out east, and Jones in their position. So that kind of tells you a little bit of change, a little bit of stuff that's going on. But this is football week. And I mean, I live for football. I mean, outside of high school, when I say goodbye to it in December, and then the NFL craze goes into February, you just have a little bit of time. Okay, you have March, April, and then all of a sudden you get spring ball, which kind of gets you a little excited. You get summer break, and summers around here just go so fast. So as again, I want to, for those who are just joining us from the podcast, my name is Eric Sharam, part of the Oklahoma Sports Network, and this is the point after, and this is our 10th episode, and we just want to make this just casual, talking about sports, talking about football, talking about Oklahoma football, if you like that. And then we'll have guests. Normally we have guests that will come in and we'll talk to them and interview them and not just have me ramble on and on and on about the Oklahoma Sports Network. But I could do that all day because I truly love what we do. And we've got an outstanding surrounding cast that puts this together. From everybody behind the scenes, it takes like 4 individuals to do a football broadcast. We have a camera operator, which is the important, and I always preface that to, especially to play-by-play guys like myself, that think that people are on the edge of their seat just waiting to hear every word you say. And it was Bob Berry that I heard long ago speak, the late Bob Berry from both Oklahoma Sooners, and he called OSU for a little bit when Barry Sanders was there because of a network change. But he says most people are there on the radio side of things to know what the score is and how much time is left. And so I took that into with the viewing, that most people can see what's going on. So they need to see it. So a camera operator is essential, followed by a producer, and they bring the ins and outs of the program. And then you have your play-by-play and color guys. So there is, when you have 12 schools and times the 4, you can do the math to know that how many people have to make this happen. And there's technology and there's issues with technology. And we always say that, with technology, you're going to expect something. It's great when it works, but everything usually goes online. And so we appreciate it so much. So all of the avenues that we can be found on the social media, all of the stuff that you can download is easy and accessible is right there. And so we appreciate that. And the podcast will keep this going because there is a purpose for it. This is another avenue where people can connect, and you can connect to us and we can connect to you. And so I appreciate it wherever you find your podcasting. And even for those who watch it on YouTube, that's my biggest audience right now, is the YouTube podcasting. We're so new that it's really kind of hard to get up in Apple, and it's hard to get on Spotify up where the search is, unless people are really searching for it to find us in that way. So I think we're going to conclude, because that's kind of the wrap up of week 0. And I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about those matches that we saw and what we could gain, because the newness of football is everybody's 0-0. Everybody's vying for a state title. Now let's prove it on the field. And what did we see? So we'll gain a little bit of knowledge from these 0-week games, and then we'll preface that with all 12 of our schools in action next week on the Oklahoma Sports Network. So I'll bid you a pleasant adieu for this week, 0 week, for the point after. And we're so glad that you're here on this podcast. And of course, we'll continue. And this is a presentation of the Oklahoma Sports Network. Download the apps. Get it today.